Welcome to Ethics and Leadership. I'm Kevin Carnahan, and I'm going to be leading you through the video portion of this class. Now, we're going to start by saying something about how these videos should be used and how they function in the class. Since this is an online class, a lot of the work that you do will be with primary texts and with forum exchanges with each other. But what we miss oftentimes is the context of the classroom, the ability to hear the professor and hear another way of understanding the information that you've been given, be able to process it in a different way, be able to listen to someone and take notes. So in these videos, I will be providing basically a set of classroom lectures that you'll be able to take and process and use as part of the content in the course. So these video lectures are just as important as the readings that you do. They will be tested for on the exams for the course. I can't say how important it is to do these video lectures, watch these video lectures, and treat them as lectures in a real classroom. Sit down with a notepad or your iPad or whatever it is that you have and take notes so that you get a picture of what's going on, and use those notes on your study guides as you go to prepare for exams. And from time to time, I might even give you questions, specific questions and answers in these videos, so that the exams will be able to test whether you have been watching them. So all of that said, I just can't say how important these videos are. Watch them, learn from them, process the information, just like you would if you were in an on-ground class. Now, we're going to have the first lecture, and I've got a little content for you today, because I want to set up the rest of the course and what we'll be doing from here on out. In particular, I'm interested in setting up a set of themes that we're going to be looking at throughout the course. The course is set up roughly in historical order, going through a series of philosophers and what those philosophers thought about leadership and society. Now, that's a broad category, and so we're going to want to specify exactly what we're looking for, and we're going to want to see what each one of these thinkers processes about these themes. So let's say what the themes are that we're looking for to get started. And as usual, it's worthwhile to actually take notes, get this list, because this could show up on an exam. What is it we want to know when we explore the ideas of ethics and leadership? Well, I'm going to suggest that we want to know about human nature. This is because we want to know about what motivates human beings. What types of things are goals for human beings? What are realistic goals? How can you, as a leader, or anyone as a leader, get people to do what you want? Or should we even have leaders? Are human beings separate from each other so that we don't really need leaders, but everyone should pursue their own path? I think we're going to look at a very broad question. Are human beings naturally good, naturally bad? Are human beings egoist? So do they worry about themselves more than other people, other concerns? Or are people capable of justice? Are they capable of being good, actually living up to moral standards? Do they expect that of their leaders? Or are they willing to let go of that? Second, social or individual? Where should we start our thinking about society? Should we think about society as composed of a discrete set of individuals? Should we think about society as if it's just a collection of those individuals? Or should we think about societies as creating individuals? Should we think about them as shaping individuals so that there is no such thing as the individual apart from society? Do individuals start owing their society for what they've become, for their ability to learn and grow in that society, for becoming who they are? Or do societies exist to serve individuals, so that the society's job is to make sure that the individual can achieve what the individual wants? This is related to the question of people and property. As we think about individuals, how are individuals shaped by property and material goods? Or how do people shape property and material goods? How did people come to own things in the first place? And what counts as a justified exchange between people? Does property exist to allow human beings to fulfill certain functions? Say, property exists so that I can feed my family, so that I can fulfill my role as a father. Or do humans exist to gain property? Which of these comes first? Then, is having property an indication that you're a good person, that you're a moral person? If you have property, does that indicate that you have worked hard for it? And thus, we should in fact give you respect for having that property. Or is property primarily a kind of temptation for you, a moral temptation? Will having property actually make you a worse person? Maybe corrupt your priorities and make you think differently about the world around you? Again, lots of different thoughts on this from different philosophers as we go through the class. Equality and inequality is an absolutely essential category to touch upon if we're going to be talking about social leadership. Because one of the basic questions of philosophy is whether there is any such thing as a natural or proper leader. We want to know, are people inherently unequal in their capabilities, such that some people have capabilities of leadership where others don't? And if so, what are those capabilities? Are the capabilities the ability to gain property? Is that what makes somebody an appropriate leader? Is it an intellectual capacity? Or is it something else? Is it their courage? Is it their slickness of tongue? What kind of qualities make someone better for leadership, or maybe better in general than other people? We can ask this on the level of the individual, but we can also ask it of particular classes. This has been important throughout the history of philosophy. We can ask about particular economic classes. Are the wealthy better off to be leaders than those who do not have wealth? We can ask it about gender. What are the differences between males and females? And are there differences in terms of who should be leaders or what their roles should be in society? And throughout history, this has been asserted in terms of race, that there are racial differences that should be played out in terms of differences in hierarchies in our society. We'll explore some of the justifications and the failures of those justifications as we go through the course. Inevitably related to this is the question of the shape of government. What kind of government do we want? And is one kind of government the right kind of government for everyone? Or are there different kinds of governments for different kinds of cultures, different kinds of people? How many people should you have governing you? Would it be most ideal to have a single monarch, perhaps a philosopher king who knows everything? Or is that an inherently dangerous structure for government? Does it allow for easy corruption to happen through the monarch? What about a small group, say the wealthy, or maybe the best educated of society? Or should we go broader? Should we have a representative democracy where everyone participates in the government? Or perhaps we should even go beyond that. Give up on the idea of hierarchical leadership at all and move towards anarchy. This is related to the question of the purposes of government. What does a government do? What does a leader do? And what are the things that they legitimately do? So, do leaders exist in order to make their followers better? Do governments exist in order to make their citizens better people? In order to shape them? Or do governments only exist to restrain the evil that people would do in the society? Do they exist to limit how much of a problem we can be to ourselves and others? Or do governments exist primarily to get people to stay out of your way as an individual? Do they exist merely to protect your individual rights? Is that all the government should do and all it should collect taxes for? This all leads to the ultimate question for the class. What, if anything, authorizes leadership? Is it a quality of the person who becomes the leader? Is it a process that chooses the leader? Do we gain a legitimate leader because that leader is chosen through a vote of the people? Or is the leader acceptable simply because the leader is the son of a king, and we know that the process is to hand down from parent to child in that relationship? Or is it something else? Is there perhaps anything that authorizes leadership? Or are human beings as equal individuals, not set to be led by each other at all, but in fact, ideally to be in relationships where they're all equal with each other and all able to pursue their own projects, or perhaps just the common project of human society? These themes that I've talked about are very broad. They're abstract, and it's fine if you don't understand them right now. Because as we go through the course, we're going to engage particular philosophers who will put forward their own systematic theories about these themes. So, as we look at particular philosophers, we'll be able to see how their understanding of human nature relates to their understanding of the authorization of government and what structure of government you should have. What authorizes leadership? As a matter of fact, as we go, I'll encourage you to kind of keep a chart of these different philosophers that goes down and keeps track of where each one of them is in each one of these areas that we talk about. This will help you because as we go on exams, there will be comparative questions that will ask you about how philosophers relate to each other on these specific themes and issues that we've talked about. Okay, so at this point, you have the basic intellectual structure of the class. You have a basic map for how we're going to go forward. So I welcome you to Ethics and Leadership, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video lecture, where we'll be talking about Plato's myth of the cave and the Ring of Gyges. I'll see you then.